weird. One time was like that. Alright, 7:06.
Okay, welcome everyone to the November 21st, 2023 meeting, regularly scheduled meeting of the Common Council. It is 7:06 and I am your host, Acting Mayor Katie Lepari-Shu. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Grant? Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember David Grossberger?
Here.
Promoting you, my apologies. Councilmember Lepari-Shu?
Here.
Councilmember Carson?
Here.
Councilmember Harrington?
Here.
Councilmember Overby?
Here.
Councilmember Felton?
Here. Okay, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we don't have any public hearings scheduled, but I see some folks in the audience, so I'd like to open it up for petitioners.
Okay,
Yes, please.
I'm Teresa Szewski, and I'm on the board of Destination Oneonta. David, and
Here together. Okay, yeah.
and we're all
Got homework for you.
deal. Okay, the city of Oneonta has informed the Destination Oneonta Board we will not be receiving funds from the city this year. Destination Oneonta will be independently continuing with many of our annual local events without the financing we usually receive. A vibrant and diverse downtown are core to all economic development. DO is made up of a board that volunteers many hours and believes in the vision of attracting visitors to our area and to enhance our way of life for our residents. This last year, the DO board had hired a knowledgeable, enthusiastic director, Victoria Smith, recommended from Mark because of her intern work with the city the previous summer. Choosing to withdraw our funding from the city budget has forced our director to secure another position elsewhere. She will be missed, and we want to thank her for her expertise she brought consistently to the DO organization. The board will move forward to continue supporting the community and merchants. Some of our 2023 accomplishments have been Visit with the Easter Bunny, Splash and Sizzle created when the Balloon Fest was canceled. The events committee created this event. Harvest Party, movie nights were coordinated with the Oneonta Parks Department and Cary. Halloween candy distribution with college student helpers. The Halloween Parade collaborated with the Rotary. The Holiday Parade, along with the tree lighting, are receiving their finishing touches within the next week. There were 14 visits to Cooperstown All-Star Village with Gary and Josh Lang promoting the Outlaws and Oneonta to promote local businesses and drive traffic to our Main Street area, including promotion of Fordo activities in the plaza. Gingerbread Jubilee, Festival of the Trees, Santa's Cottage, the tree lighting ceremony. These events brought an accumulation of over 10,000 people to enjoy free activities within our city. Our social media has been open to the public for free for 2 years. We now have over 7,000 followers. We had been posting daily our area businesses, community, and city activities. We have also collaborated with the city's website to provide the landing page for Explore Oneonta. We at Destination Oneonta will continue supporting our community events. Our board will be meeting to discuss continued support from the city. And we will with the city. So we're going to be discussing support from the city with the city. And we will update the council with these discussions at the next meeting or via email. Are there any questions and any questions?
Yeah, so I understood that this was going to a bidding process. Has something else been done differently?
We talked about doing an RFP process, and we were in the course of developing what that RFP to be something different than what it's been. Historically, we've had some other ideas that we're still fleshing out and looking to bring forward to a future council discussion. There is still $60,000 in the budget for 2024. some sort of economic development related events, promotions, marketing type of thing that we've had, but looking to take a different approach.
So when you say we, are you saying that the Finance Human Resource Committee? Who's the we?
We, city staff, the mayor, have been working on ideas.
Yes, there's your answer.
Is that the way you understood it? That they're gonna change the RFP, or?
I was aware that there's not gonna be an RFP.
Right, we had talked about having a different RFP, a different scope of work, and now we're kind of moving away from the RFP approach.
To hiring
Okay.
somebody,
Well,
possibly.
not necessarily one entity, but looking at how different ways to use that funding to try to encourage downtown foot traffic and the economic development kind of side of things that I think this $60,000 was really intended.
I actually had a question about that when we get to our tentative budget discussion, so maybe we can talk about that a little bit more at that time, which would be later, so you have to stick it out there.
And so, feel free to reach out to anybody on the DO board, email, phone.
Yeah, additional comment?
I'm Bob Wood, I'm the treasurer of Destination Oneonta, and I haven't been on the board for only about a year, but I wanted to let the council members know that Destination, when we started getting into the contract for $60,000 a year with the city, we shifted our whole organizational and our financial structure, and we don't no longer charge our businesses membership fees. And so because of that, we've become more reliant on that money, and that it will have some sort of a definite impact, whether we have to restructure so that we need to start charging membership fees again or some other way, because, and this is my personal opinion, it's going to be very difficult for us to do all the events that we have without some sort of, at least a part-time paid staff person. It's going to be very difficult to do that. And there's also a whole lot of things that we've been providing through that contract that where we're deeply intertwined, and I hope we can get together with Greg and or Mark sometime in the very near future, because we're not sure where we're supposed to be going with some of those things, like OCI. We have people who are applying for OCI right now and we don't know what to tell them. So, and there's several other things that we would just like to get together so we can figure out who's going to do what and how we might tackle it. But I think that there is it's going to shift the way we're able to do a lot of things if we don't have some sort of funding. And whether it's from you guys or whether we raise it ourselves, however it is, it's good. There's
I mean, DO's still here.
Yeah.
We're still gonna
And we
help out
want-
community events when we can, how we can. We just right now not 100% sure how that's gonna look, depending on how funding works.
I mean, it's just, yeah, you just feel a little bit like we don't know what's going on.
So you are still managing the OCI program?
Yes.
Until,
We're told not to.
Well, that's why and Mark and I have been corresponding with emails to set up a meeting early this week. But that hasn't happened yet. So, and that was one of the questions, like, because we have one OCI program for January and possibly March. So it's like, okay, if that program's ending, we need to also let these people know that the program's ending, so there might not be anything available. You know.
Does DO get any financial support from downtown merchants?
If they sponsor the event with any business.
And that's the model we're looking at, is trying to raise enough money through this sponsorships. The events
Yeah.
have typically been pretty close to self-supporting, but the organizational aspect has been supported by the city.
Right.
So without that organizational aspect, the board will certainly do everything in their power to step up and fill that gap, but it could be a heavy lift.
Yeah,
Before there was a Destination Oneonta, wasn't there a Main Street Merchants Association or Main Street Oneonta?
all the same group.
It's all the same,
It's all the
same
same.
thing.
And, but didn't the merchants each contribute
They were
know,
charging,
some fee,
They-
10,000 a year or something like that.
No, it was $150 a year, but we kind of eliminated that and opened it up for free for the same stuff.
because it kind of became, competition with the chamber. Who do you go with this, I'm a business owner on Main Street. Who do you go with, the chamber this year or Destination Oneonta? You know,
It was
there's only
confusing.
so much money.
Right.
And so, this way, it worked out really nicely for the businesses.
We had, over COVID, we had a lot of businesses that said that they couldn't afford the $150. So we still kept them on per se, and then as we moved forward, it was like, well, if we're still sharing them and they're not paying us, why don't we just open it up and, yeah, and Emily was one of them that were a promoter of that, to open it up to all the businesses, which I feel it was a good move too, so.
So, since our budget is on the table, we haven't voted on anything yet, we can certainly take this into account, you know, with our conversation, learn more about what we plan to do going forward, and then I presume that you will continue to be informed of what next year looks like
sure.
as we know more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're done.
Okay, we'll still
Well, I
have
am
you too. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Woody's good to see you.
Good to see you, Ed.
Do we have anyone else who'd
I
like to
ride by
speak?
your house on my bike. I ride by the house on my cycling office, and I leave.
Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak? I don't wanna call on you, but if you would like to speak, this is your last chance. Would you like to address the council or not? It's okay if not, I don't wanna put you on the spot.
Not at this time.
Okay, I just wanna make sure. Carolyn? Rosa?
Not at the moment.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just didn't wanna move on without giving you the chance. Okay, do we have any correspondence?
One item of correspondence.
Okay.
It looks worse, it's, okay. All right, dear council, as far as I can determine, a tax cap of 2.9% has been established for the city of Oneonta in reference to the 2024 budget. This year, retired folks on a fixed income received a 3.2% cost of living increase. You have about 1,700 senior citizens within the city of Oneonta. Many of those folks are on a fixed income. As a council, I am asking you to stay within the 2.9% tax cap. Do what you have to do to bring the budget within the tax cap. From newspaper reports, I am under the understanding that a 10% hike in property tax is proposed for consideration. I am also of the understanding that a proposal to increase water rates by 10% is a proposal. Further, I am of the understanding that a proposal to raise sewer taxes by 10% is part of the budget. All three are financially irresponsible. There is much evidence to show that the city of Oneonta is the third poorest city in New York State. We cannot and should not whack the taxpayer with a hike above tax cap. Statistically, the city of Oneonta ranks number 10 of all municipalities in New York State and the greatest percent of non-taxable property. Staying within the tax cap is not only reasonable but necessary. An additional burden above the tax cap is unreasonable for those who are taxable. Kindly accept these comments and take action to bring the budget within the tax cap of 2.9%. Respectfully, William Shu.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to board and commission reports, Public Arts Commission.
All right, that's me. Okay, so the Public Arts Commission met on November 8th. And our big topic of discussion is for a mural on Foothills as part of the Market Street DRI funding. We want to put a big thing up on that giant wall that you see, like kind of when you come down Chestnut Street extension. So they're kind of working out how, working with Foothills and kind of working out how they would do kind of a call for proposals, but more, I think they're gonna start by requesting a call for qualifications to do a mural of that scope to begin with. Kind of thinking that maybe the general kind of broad scope might be like, you know, requesting for a mural that has, that celebrates creativity or something like that, to keep in line with like kind of music and art themes. Commissioner Spitzoff suggested we get a subscription for Cafe, which is the service that kind of fosters call for artists for various projects, and she will provide details for that subscription at the next meeting. I think, so this is a little old, the chair asked if Foothills could contribute towards the mural, and Jeffrey Berliner, who was there at the meeting, he's the director of Foothills, he didn't feel that that would be completely off the mark, and I'm pretty sure that they are going to contribute something towards it as well. Update from that meeting. That the funds have to be used by the end of 2024. Then we talked about empty storefronts on Main Street and contacting building owners downtown to maybe put art in the windows or have artists decorate the windows, kind of beautify downtown spaces. So I reached out to a lot of them and I'm kind of waiting to hear back. Then another thing we talked about were big belly trash cans and displays on the side. Could be a potential for like showing like local art, maybe having a little competition, maybe featuring some local poetry, things like that. And so they're kind of looking at how they would facilitate that contest. Maybe an OCI grant could be the source of funding, or an outside nonprofit like KNEL could facilitate it. And then in other business, Commissioner Spitzoff also discussed that some SUNY Oneonta students might want to have an art pop-up market somewhere in downtown Oneonta. So I kind of threw that out to some of those building owners that have empty storefronts at this time to maybe facilitate that. And that was it.
Cool.
Any questions?
Questions or comments? I have a couple.
Yeah.
Okay, one is a comment. I think that I'm really excited to hear about the Foothills mural. I know that the funding, has to be within that footprint, but also because we're gonna have so much revitalization there. And the fact that now there isn't like this hulking structure in front of that will really even open that up to be able to be seen like from Main Street and draw people down to Market Street. So I'm happy that they're pursuing that. And I'm happy to hear that Foothills is like engaged and wants to.
Yeah, and excited about it.
You had mentioned poetry on the sides of Big Bellies, which reminded me, I know that a while ago, there had been some discussion about establishing a poet laureate position for the city. Have they been talking about that anymore at all?
I think they brought it up, but there's not really funding for it.
Gotcha, okay.
So I think it's kind of been tabled, but I'm happy to bring it up at our next meeting again to see where that stands.
That would be great. I think that even if they could come up with a recommendation for what an appropriate stipend for a poet laureate would be, and then like develop, I know they were working on developing the, the criteria, like the events that we want them to speak at and that kind of thing, that would be good, and then that could potentially be moved up for council consideration. So.
Okay. Great, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Housing Commission, Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Don't get too serious.
The Housing Commission met on November 8th. There were only two items of business. The Milton Main Street Building Owner Survey is being updated continually. Chair Baskin is working on that. She has sent a spreadsheet out to the commission. The majority of the conversation was actually largely led by the mayor, Mayor Drenick, about the role of Housing Commission's future. There has been a little bit of difficulty kind of focusing on what to do. Half the commission was, not half, approximately half, 3 of the 7 were absent, so a lot of it was just discussion. We did have a quorum, but I think there was a desire to have everybody on board with it before firm actions were going forward. The next session, which will be December, early December, yes. There's going to be a discussion about how instead of unintentionally siloing in groups, how the full commission can go forward and work together as groups, looking at, I believe Commissioner Goss is phrasing was like the low-hanging fruit, kind of some of the things that Housing Commission can actually take concrete steps on. I was gonna ask the mayor to step in, I was about 15 minutes late due to class, but that was the majority of it. Next meeting, I should have more concrete information, but this was really kind of a question session with the mayor about how the commission can kind of focus and can go forward.
Cool, thank you. Questions?
So Luke, was he suggesting that abolishing the ad hoc, because isn't there like 7 ad hoc committees?
Yeah, there was talk about that. There was talk about that and really focusing on what the commission as a whole could do as opposed to the ad hoc. And that is going to be further kind of, I'm sorry guys, I'm not speaking well today. It's gonna be further nailed down at the next meeting.
Cool. Any other questions?
Thank you for bearing with that.
Okay.
That word explosion.
That's okay, you get a second chance.
Yes, I do.
Because it's the Landmarks and Historic
If you
Preservation
think that was
Commission.
a word explosion. So, we met on November 13th. Most of the commission was present. The majority of the time spent was on a kind of a trial run of how the commission would function as a board in its historic preservation role and recommendations to ZBA as well as the planning commission. The commission doesn't have its full power yet. It's still going through the state's process of getting, is accredited the proper term? Licensed, named, power given, delegated. Verified, yeah. So this was just a practice run. There was a large amount of debate about the 31 Walnut property proposal about with the owners of, oh my gosh, I'm blanking, I'm so sorry, folks. Stagecoach, thank you very much. And we went through 3 rounds of voting. Bonnie, I would just like to say, did a fantastic job. There were a lot of questions. Carrie also called in to help. So it was great. The final motion that was passed unanimously, there was one absent. I can give you the motion. I believe this is the 3rd modified from the original, finally passed. The Planning Commission take into the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission and made the motion to recommend to the Planning Commission take consideration of the fabric of the neighborhood and the proposed changes of the garage stay within the footprint of the building and all changes stay within the character of the garage. So the Housing Commission was looking at it purely from the historic footprint, the historic character of the structure. That was what was sent on to the Planning Commission, which I believe was that Wednesday, last Wednesday. We also discussed further looking at the New York State Historic Business Preservation Registry, which is a business that has been in service over 50 years. It's mostly ceremonial. It's something the city can do. It's meant to honor businesses for their longevity and their contributions to the community. The next meeting, and some of those properties, the commission is looking at kind of doing homework on and going to report back at the next meeting. The next meeting will finally look at establishing the homes on the historic preservation, the historic district, I'm sorry. And there'll be an FAQ for potential housing district. The vast majority of that time, I will say, was for the trial run. We also unfortunately had a resignation of Jerry Webster resign after the meeting, but that was sent to us very shortly after the meeting. So I don't know if it should be included here or not, but it has to do with the Housing Commission, so.
Sure, good update. Questions, comments?
Do you have a quick question? I'm sorry, I know I normally don't speak. Do you know where he filed that? 'Cause he
Bob Brzezowski sent it to us. I can forward it to you. Yeah, do
needs,
that now.
needs to be filed in our office.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry if I screwed up
No,
the
you didn't
process.
screw anything up.
Process
No,
question.
thank you, sorry.
That's okay, thanks for,
And I promise I'm not texting, I'm just trying to get this secured before I forget.
actually, I was hoping that you would expand a little bit on the conversation around 31 Walnut Street and the Stagecoach Coffee, just kind of summarizing, what that discussion was
Yeah.
like. And I know you said that they kind of landed on really recommending, I think, I'm gonna paraphrase
Go ahead.
for my understanding, recommending that the planning commission consider the historic nature of the building and the neighborhood.
Yes. So there was a lot of back and forth conversation. I will be honest, a big part of the conversation was procedural on how to do motions and how not to do motions.
Okay.
There was concern about the placement of the business. The commission really tried to rein itself into focusing purely within its scope, which is looking at the historic character, making sure that there's no external modifications.
Okay.
The internal. There were opinions of, most of the commission seemed to not be in favor of it, but they decided not to vote on that because that was beyond the scope of the commission. So really just trying to look at the facts of what the commission was assigned to do, which is looking at preserving the historic quality of the building. So that's what they did.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, kudos to the commission for looking that way, that's very hard to do.
Yeah, really happy to hear that.
Keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good, we had a lot of participation from the audience, which was great. We had folks here that were petitioning and engaged in the conversation. So yeah, it is hard to do, and I do commend them because it was their first, the commission's first attempt at doing what we were assigned to do, even though it's not a binding thing because we're not fully registered with the state. But it does show how contentious some of these issues can be. So I think it was good practice, albeit a little stressful.
Okay.
Who's the chair?
Bob Rosowski.
Okay, no further questions? Everyone feel complete? All right, environmental board, Councilmember Davies.
Yes, the environmental board met November 14th, last Tuesday, and they had been asked by the city staff to consider taking over kind of the role of Climate Smart Community Task Force. And it's kind of a role that has been, really needs to have a home and needs to have some energy behind it. After a great deal of discussion that spanned 2 or 3 meetings, they have recommended, and I'll be giving this to the mayor, that the task force be comprised of 2 city employees, including the student intern who will be focusing Climate Smart, 2 environmental board members, and there are 2 people that step forward there, and at least 4 volunteers. So that is their recommendation for the composition of the Climate Smart Community Task Force. In other business, and this was really the only other piece of business, that took up a great deal of the meeting. You may recall that they've been working on naming some of the creeks, the unnamed creeks within the city. And the environmental group from the high school stepped forward and named the creek that runs behind the high school. And it was an Iroquois name that had something to do with frogs. And after trying to reach out to the Iroquois Nation and see if they could get kind of official approval of using the Iroquois name, they were not able to get anything back. So they went back and rethought it. They walked along the creek and noticed that there was a particular frog that is there. And if you ever go past that area in the spring, you'll hear a kind of a snoring sound, and that's this frog. And apparently it's called a leopard frog, and apparently that's the snoring sound. So taking the snoring sound and this leopard frog, they've come up with the new name, Lazy Leopard Creek. And they're going to be asking that, and I directed this to Quality of Life and Infrastructure, that particular name be considered. And then what would have to happen is that if the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee believes that there's kind of value in moving that forward to Common Council would need to agree that that would be an acceptable or suitable name. And then in which case the Environmental Board will reach out to the Geological Society and officially try to get it registered as a registered name. And so they have been doing all the legwork this past weekend to try to actually map it and figure out the length of it and the whole thing. So that's where we are with that. I think that was a nice compromise, and the student group seemed really pleased with that particular change. Even though it wasn't the original name that they want, they were very pleased with that particular name. That's really about it.
Cool. Questions, comments?
It's a great name.
Yeah,
Great.
Lazy Leopard Creek.
Now I want to go visit the frogs. in the spring.
Springtime, gotta wait for them to snore.
Okay.
It's a good place to take a hit nap.
Yeah. Okay, community police board, I don't know who that is actually. Oh. That's why.
The only
Okay.
board commission with me as a liaison.
Okay.
They met November 20th, just yesterday. There was discussion about a Facebook page. We had some discussion at the last council meeting where I reported on this. Some council members expressed some concern with there being another Facebook page created by a board or commission. The commission discussed those concerns that they would like to proceed with having a Facebook page, and they asked me to share their reasoning behind that. I think the Facebook account will be complementary to the city's efforts through the police department page and the city website generally. It's intended to be educational, not to be serving as a complaint board. They wouldn't want to allow any comments whatsoever on public posting, but just to be able to disseminate information and also receive private messages if people have a private message for the board. The page would be monitored by the board as well as the city clerk as an administrator, so that we wouldn't get issues over time as board members change. We could have control of it as a city, essentially Facebook page. Without a separate page, they think that there could be, some of the community might view that as not represented, not being able to share their interests. So if, essentially, if people don't see the community police board as representing the community's interests, and they won't provide the police board with feedback that otherwise they may not feel comfortable providing directly to the city police department or to the city administrator. So they see themselves as a potential outlet for those sorts of communications. They did, I think Katie had mentioned an option of Google Voice as being a call-in option for giving an anonymous tip sort of thing. They like that idea. I think they might, maybe we'll talk about that more in the future. They didn't discuss that in detail. They also discussed the report form that I provided and I had drafted per the charter, the ordinance that was passed with the council, the city administrators to report any official complaints or commendations that come through the city to the community police board. So we came up with a form for that and discussed that. We discussed board vacancies. There are 3 board members out of 5 currently. So that means there's 2 vacancies. There will soon be a 3rd vacancy. Bryce Wooden, obviously, he's going to eventually be resigning as he's joining council. They are on their own going to submit any names they can come up with to the mayor for consideration. Community outreach was discussed. Their primary goal is to try to recruit people to fill the vacancies so they can have a quorum in the short term. In the long term, they discussed a possible meet and greet with the public and the police department to be held sometime this spring. And they scheduled the next meeting for December 19th at 4:30 p.m. They want to get one more meeting in while they still have a quorum to continue discussing their community outreach.
Questions? Comments? Okay, Dave?
Not a comment so much as an addition to the list. The planning commission was not on this, I noticed.
Oh,
So
right.
I can do,
That would be lovely.
I can do a short summary, which is opposite of what the meeting was. I unfortunately couldn't not go to the meeting, but I watched the entire meeting, all 3 hours of it plus. And essentially this was about 31 Walnut Street, Stagecoach Coffee would like to put use the back of the property as a coffee roastery and bakery market. This was essentially a sketch plan review and a seeker review. So they determined it was a type 2 action, reviewed the plans. There were multiple question and answer sessions, including with the owners. And what was determined was the comment period was cut short, so it's extended until
December 6th.
the 6th. And so it'll be back in front of the planning commission next month.
Yes. Could you clarify a process for me? So I believe that I heard the chair say they have 60 days to make a determination. Is that from the date of the initial meeting or the date of the next meeting?
It's 60 days of the determination of completeness of the application.
So would it be considered complete until
They've only had
comment?
sketch, as I understand it, there's only a sketch plan.
Okay,
So far, so 60 days from the date of final submission to a complete package.
okay, cool. Thank you
Or
for
complete
clarifying.
application.
And from my experience,
Subject to carrier's approval.
sketch plans,
application. It was not a sketch plan conference,
Oh, okay.
so.
So is
So
there
it's-
been a complete application?
I didn't think it was.
I think there are still some components that they're going to want to review prior to making any
Okay.
sort of decision.
But the 60 days doesn't commence until there's
That
been
final.
there's been a final application.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so
application
presumably
has
the
been deemed
next
final.
meeting. Okay, cool, so it'll be 60 days from now. All right, thank you. Thank you. Yes,
So then it would have to move on to ZBA, because aren't they asking for some variances because of the
The
proximity
variances
to
for the,
neighbors?
right, the variances for the setback. Everything goes through planning commission first, and then it would presumably move on to ZBA.
which is the 28th, right? Or the 29th, one of those 2 days.
Would that be enough time to go through if planning moved it?
Planning meets on the 20th,
ZBA would have less than a month to review this.
ZBA,
So the application has been submitted, they will get that December 1st with the distribution of all of their meeting materials
To ZBA.
to ZBA. They will get notified that there is a pending decision in front of the planning commission, and then all of those materials are on the planning commission website as well.
so then the planning commission meets on the 20th and the ZBA meets on either the 28th or the 29th.
Maybe the 27th, if they need the 20th.
Oh,
So
it's
we
the
get
27th.
them. Yeah.
All right, look at that. Yes.
So I just have a question about this too, because I've gotten a lot of emails about it. And I'm just kind of, when there's okay. Well, if there's a lot, there's a lot of concerns about this, from local constituents. I'm wondering, is there ever an opportunity for those local people to voice their concerns directly with the person making the application? So that they might be able to kind of like mitigate those concerns, like perhaps noise or scent or, I don't know, things like that.
Usually the planning commission is the place to do that, because you would assume that the owner is gonna be there.
Right.
Doing it this is my own opinion, doing it behind the scenes and outside of the jurisdiction of the planning commission, it leaves it all up to, there's no teeth to whatever they decide on. So
Right.
it's better to be in front of the planning commission, because that's a judicial board,
Right,
and that's where the rules are set on what they have to do.
right, so
Isn't
that
it
would be the opportunity, so that would be the opportunity then for the public to come and speak.
Right,
Just
and that's
like
why there
in
were
that audience of the
a
planning
significant, I could only see the front row,
Right,
but I could tell there were a ton of people and you were there,
35 to
so,
40 people.
yeah. And I'm assuming it's gonna be the same way next week.
Yeah, so that's why they extended the public comment period to December 6th, so that so that the planning commission can kind of compile all the public comment, provide it to the applicant, and then the applicant has 2 weeks to respond prior to the planning commission meeting, at which people are still welcome to attend, welcome to
Okay.
voice, they'll have public comment again. But this way, they can kind of get all the feedback that is possible prior to the meeting and then give the applicant time to respond. That's the expectation,
okay,
as I understand it.
okay, excellent.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think a lot of people do have something to say about it. Yes, Ed?
Isn't this property in a residential district?
It's an R2,
Yeah.
yep.
So they have to apply for a use variance.
Special use.
No,
Special use
permitted
permit.
use, subject to special use permit.
Excuse me?
It's an authorized use, subject to special use permit.
The variance through the ZBA is for the setbacks.
I think they actually need 3
It's not a use
variances.
variance. It's an authorized use in the zone, subject to special use permit.
Really?
Really?
I plan to talk more about that later also.
That's why it was designated as a type 2 action, because it's an authorized use in the zone.
Okay, thank you for making sure that the planning commission report was
Sure.
made. Okay, moving on to committee reports, legislative committee, Chair Davies.
Yep, legislative committee met last Monday, November 13th. And as you recall, we kicked back the walls and fences code to that committee. And Code Enforcement Officer Yearly was there and he had reviewed, I guess, the YouTube video and understood the concerns and had made some edits and some corrections. So it was a really short conversation, quite frankly. You'll see that this now contains those edit and concerns. So that moved on really quickly, and then we talked about an issue that had been raised at an earlier meeting, that the need for a board of ethics is in our code. And what seemed like it was gonna be also a short conversation evolved into a very in-depth conversation about some really great questions that we have about the board of ethics. Questions such as, what does the term look like? It serves at the pleasure of the mayor. Should that be the case? Should it be a board that is mayor appointed but council approved? Should it be made or appointed by an outgoing council? There is some different logic for that. Should it be part of the charter? And then, again, what is the term? So some really good questions that we're going to try to get some answers to before discussing this at our December meeting and hopefully wrapping this up so we can get this codified and move forward with the appointment of Board of Ethics members.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns? All right. I'm sorry.
So Mark, on the 7-foot height, I think that's one of those things we talked about, right? So you mentioned something about the commercial fences are only 7 foot.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, and I misquoted that line at the last meeting, I think off camera with you. It's 6 foot, and then it's 7 foot with the additional foot. So where is that?
Screening material.
The screening material, I forget where it is exactly here. I think it's number 1, the second page there. It talks about that screening materials, 50% screening surface consists of regularly distributed apertures. So that's the idea of trying to, the concern is that if we say go to 8 foot, there's very few fence manufacturers that are, the standard things that you would buy at any home improvement shop are usually 6 foot. And so that anything above that usually might be kind of scapped in, added on, and create some kind of unsightly and kind of aesthetically unpleasing fences. So that's where the idea was, is to create that 50% screening, extra additional foot to allow for that. Does that address your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'd also discussed at one point, you and I discussed whether it was on the bottom, and it was always the thinking was on the top. And then the language was changed within the standard section to reflect some of the concern about the masonry block, concrete block that was in the original concerns. So some of that language has been changed, as you can see.
So that was removed, the CMU? So I'm struggling to find it.
Yeah, I think it was removed, and then there was some clarification there. I was not working from a copy at that particular time, so I wasn't able to kind of make notes on it. Kate, do you have copies of the original? What was the changes that were?
So I don't have the original, I'm sorry.
Or the edited copy that we had?
I do. So I remember the discussion being, or not really discussion, but the addressing the concern being that it was unfinished or unveneered, so it's under materials,
Right.
subsection 2, unfinished or unveneered concrete masonry units. So it's okay if they have like some sort of stucco application or something like that, but just plain like cinder blocks cannot be used.
So your kind of concrete block, the way you think of it, kind of those kind of interlocking blocks that you would have for some type of walls that are holding back a berm or something like that, those are acceptable, right? So that they're more, they kind of have a more of a,
That's right.
of a kind of block look. I mean, you can imagine what they look like, pretty consistent, but a kind of cinder block wall stacked on top of each other, not acceptable unless it has some kind of facing to it, so that they're trying to kind of avoid that, so it has more of a stuccoed look or patterned look of some sort. So cinder block would not be counted in there. But yes, those masonry type of interlocking blocks that you typically see are okay.
But reevaluated that.
Yeah, we made those changes really quickly.
Yeah, we did.
Adjust everything, so, thanks for bringing that up. And thanks to Stephen for doing that work.
Yep.
Okay, I get to do some talking. The Finance and Human Resources Committee met on November 16th, which was last Thursday. On the agenda, motions 2, 3, 4, and 5 are OPT bus contract renewals. I'll just briefly go over them. Foxcare is for 24 and 25. It's $1,500 annually, plus $460 annually for a new bus purchase reserve. There was some discussion because the Foxcare contract has not changed, for 2 years now. But one of the things that we found out is that we also charge the town for OPT service in the town. And that contract has increased and it offsets, what Foxcare will not, is not willing to pay. Hannaford, they make daily runs, Monday through Saturday, 22 round trip runs, and then Sunday from noon to 6. In 2024, that's gonna be $700 a month. In 2025, it's gonna be $800 a month. Housing Visions, 3 trips a day, Monday through Friday, $900 a month, 2024 and 25. Walmart, 23 round trips, Monday through Saturday and Sunday, 12 to 6. Annually, 16,200, and 2025, 18,000. We had a discussion on the Oneonta Fire Department, apparatus replacement plan. We've been discussing, purchasing a Quint. There was a suggestion by Councilmember Harrington to look at purchasing 2 of the other alternate vehicles that are on the vehicle replacement plan. And so we got an answer to that question and had some additional discussion there. That's gonna continue to come back to the Finance Committee, although we do wanna try to get a final cost estimate for that as soon as possible. I talked to Brian in the hallway, but we'll have some more information at the next Finance Committee meeting and hopefully something in front of council by the end of the year. We have motion number 6 on the agenda to accept an annual donation for the fire department, which can be used at the chief's discretion. Motion number 7 addresses the insurance requirements for electricians. This would change the requirement from $300,000 to $1 million for electricians' liability insurance. We also discussed a code change for plumbing insurance to mimic the code, the wording in the code for the electricians. Because right now it specifies in the code plumbers' insurance valuation requirements, but electricians just says it can be set by the council from time to time. So maybe that will go to legislative, or maybe that will come directly to council. Motion number 8 is a DPW working supervisor appointment. This is on the water and sewer crew. It's budgeted and vacant. This person is an external hire and they're looking to be effective on December 4th. We received the quarterly staffing update. There was obviously no motion necessary for that. I think one of the kind of things that we learned is that we're still looking for 10 part-time bus drivers, which is a lot. So if anybody you know is qualified to drive a bus or wants to learn, send them to Dave Coatailing. We had a discussion, and there will be no motion on a title change for someone working in the water and sewer department. Basically, it's the result of a desk audit, and it will change the grade of the position based on the work that they're already doing for the city. I don't think we need to move on that, right? That was just for our information.
Yes, and we'll let them back for next meeting.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. Motion number 9 is a stipend for a certified backflow prevention device tester. This is a certification for a service that we typically would contract out for. This is a staff member who has this certification. It's $500 annually. They'll be able to perform that testing on the city backflow devices. We discussed 27 Market Street. There was a change order. The final change order of that project was for $1,500 for the Delaware Engineering additional oversight of the subcontractors. It came to the finance committee because coupled with the other change orders, the total was more than 10% of the project budget, but the project came in at $57,000 under budget overall for a total city investment of $477,915 and probably something silly like 11 cents. We discussed the 2024 water and sewer rates briefly. We received the 2024 part-time wage schedule and the 2024 admin manual. We didn't have a lot of time to review those, so those are gonna come back to the committee, and then we had a we had an executive session to discuss contract negotiations. That was it. Questions? Yes, I always look right at you.
Thanks. So, number 7, are we putting up an expense to folks that want to be licensed electricians? Or is this that they're going to their insurance company and putting the city on top of their insurance policy that they probably carry already?
Right, except we're requiring that insurance policy to be $1 million.
Instead of $300,000.
That's almost the minimum, standard across the board now, is $1 million.
I just want to make sure it wasn't just the city alone. So that's a pretty substantial
It
bill.
is.
And then, the total cost that we have into 27 Market Street, we purchased that for what, $450, somewhere around there?
450,000.
What is it, David?
It was 435, something like that.
435, and then what was the number you just said you
So
washed out at?
the total project cost was $1.3 million. Oh, that's where the 11 cents was. $1,328,395.11, but the total city investment after grant funding and other sources was $477,915.
Four
Am I wrong?
cents.
Did I mess that up?
When you add in that total project cost of 1.3 includes the acquisition cost that Lynn was asking about, so the total city investment is $850,000.
There we go.
Ah, okay.
The 419,546 was for the demolition project.
Ah,
So you
okay.
add back in the acquisition cost.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you just repeat that number, the 8?
Total city general fund investment, $850,481.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. Okay. Other questions? Okay, Safe Homes and Neighborhoods Committee.
So we met yesterday, Emily and I. We had a guest speaker, Joe Poetti. He is a representative of Fordu. I thought he raised a very interesting concern, and that is a lack of an ID for folks that are challenged for finding housing or being able to use any of the public services. So we just think that they sign up, and at least I did, just go and sign up with DSS and they're good, but if they don't have an ID, they actually can't sign up for a DSS. And so that was mentioned by Joe yesterday. It actually piqued my curiosity. I did some research last night, and then I went to Purdue today just to double check, and I actually heard from another counselor plus some clients that that is the actual case. If they don't have an ID, they're not eligible for public services. So this is something that our committee will be working on, trying to figure out. The police chief is involved in the conversation. And then he's also researching SPOA, which is single point of access. So overall, it was a good meeting. We also placed a date of an invite to all of the folks. There was about 48 people that were interested in participating one way or another with this committee to re-invite them to December 6th or 7th. We're gonna do a noodle poodle. Doodle poodle. Poll. That's because I wrote down, sorry. And we're gonna see where the majority of the folks wanna land on this one, on December 6th or 7th, so.
So what is it really called, a poodle what?
Yeah, you're a poodle doodle.
No, seriously, doodle.
Doodle
Poll.
Pool.
Poll.
Poll.
Here's a poll. Okay, so maybe since most of us clearly are not familiar with that. Could
So basically what it is like if you want to like find a common time to invite someone to a meeting, you email out a bunch of potential dates, right, and times, and then people can select when they're available, and then you kind of just pick the time when most people are available.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Actually, surveys it for you, tell you
Yeah.
what the majority of the people want.
could you also explain the single point of access a little bit?
I can tell you that I sent an email to the police chief reminding him that we wanted that email for him to research the SPOA.
Okay.
Because that was last night, the first time I'd ever heard of it.
Okay,
So
same.
basically, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a single point of access, because when I Googled it, some information on it,
So it's kind of like, just paraphrasing, like no matter what service you need, you go to like this one place and they
It's
direct
for
you?
mental health services, is actually
Okay,
what it's
gotcha.
for.
Okay,
So, but the ID thing, though, I think is gonna be interesting to really flesh this one out.
Yeah, it's terrible, because if you don't have an ID, you can't get a birth certificate, if you don't have any kind of ID, you, like, how do you move forward at all, you know?
And then what's interesting is birth certificates and social security cards are not accepted by the postal service. I looked that one up last night too. You can't go get a post office box with one of those two IDs. So if your stuff got stolen or you lost it, you're starting from ground zero. You have some challenges, and that's what was really apparent to me when I visited Purdue today, that you can be very challenged and get those IDs.
And a lot of people have just kind of resigned themselves to like, I don't even wanna bother trying anymore because it's like,
sure,
you know,
And that was resounded again today when I stepped in.
yeah,
well,
it's crazy.
I'm looking forward to learning more, thank you. Okay, city administrators report? No?
No report tonight?
Okay.
Unless you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions right now for the city administrator? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward to the mayor's remarks, but since I am not the mayor, we won't have those either. Let's move on to our consent agenda. Okay, motion number one, that the common council approves the warrants totaling $1,616,412.56, and that the same be placed on the director of finance's desk for payment as presented. Motion number two, that the common council authorizes the city administrator to sign a 2-year contract with A.O. Fox Hospital, Oleana, New York, covering January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2025, for continued provision of Oneonta Public Transit Services to the Fox Care Facility in the town of Oneonta for a total annual amount of $1,500, subject to review by the city attorney. Motion number three, that the common council authorizes the city administrator to sign a 2-year contract with Hannaford Food Store in the town of Oneonta, covering January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2025, for continued provision of the Oneonta Public Transit Services with a charge of $8,400 for 2024 and $9,600 for 2025, subject to review by the city attorney. Motion number four, that the common council authorizes the city administrator to sign a 2-year contract with Housing Visions Unlimited Incorporated of Syracuse, covering January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2025, for continued provision of Oneonta Public Transit Services with an annual charge of $10,800, subject to review by the city attorney. Motion that the common council authorizes the city administrator to sign a 2-year contract with Walmart Supercenter in the town of Oneonta, covering January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2025, for continued provision of Oneonta Public Transit Services with a charge of $16,200 for 2024 and $18,000 for 2025, subject to review by the city attorney. Motion number six, that the common council authorizes the director of finance to accept a donation in the amount of $1,000 from an anonymous donor to be restricted for use by the City of Oneonta Fire Department for equipment, and further authorizes any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. Motion number seven, that the common council approves the following resolution. Whereas subsection 112-6 (D) of the City of Oneonta Municipal Code requires electricians licensed by the City of Oneonta to provide an insurance policy to the City of Oneonta individually and/or as an additional insured to indemnify the city against liability for bodily injury, property damage, costs, and expenses which the city may incur or suffer by reason of granting such permit. Whereas such policy shall be at least the amounts as set from time to time by resolution of the common council for bodily injury and property damage liability. Therefore, be it resolved that the common council requires licensed electricians to provide an insurance policy with a minimum coverage of $1 million combined bodily injury and property damage liability. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Motion number 8, that the common council approves the city administrator's appointment of Ronald Georgia to the position of working supervisor at a base annual salary of $49,500, CSEA salary grade C6, effective December 4th, 2023, subject to the satisfaction of all applicable civil service requirements. Motion number 9, that the common council approves the city administrator's assignment of an annual stipend of $500 to water and sewer maintenance mechanic Robert Stevens, effective November 22nd, 2023, for additional duties, including the testing, repair, and replacement of backflow preventers. Do I have any motions that anyone would like to remove?
So I got a question for our city attorney.
Okay.
So-
All right.
So when we were doing the hiring policy, we found out that when we distributed, you can't take power away from the council or another elected official without going for public referendum. We took power away from the mayor on signing contracts and gave it to the city attorney, or to the city administrator. Is that a violation because we took power away that's supposed to go out to the public referendum?
Think about that. The mayor does not have the authority to sign contracts on his own. The mayor can't say, I'm gonna sign this contract, I don't care what the council says. The mayor only has the authority to sign contracts as may have been approved by the common council. At least that's how I recall the statute. I mean, he can't sign a contract unless it's been authorized and approved by the council. So it's actually a delegation of authority rather than a removal, I would think. The charter says that the mayor signs. So it would seem to me that it would probably be best to have that modified. But I don't think you're removing the power because he doesn't have the power to do it on his own. You see what I'm saying?
So just,
I guess I do, but I guess it just, because it starts off general power, the other one. I got it.
He has the power to sign contracts that have been approved by the common council. He doesn't have the power to sign contracts, period.
Right.
So
That'd be the same thing with the city administrator, right?
that's what I'm saying, is that if the council is the one who empowers and approves contracts to be signed. I don't know that that's exclusive. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'd have to think about it because I don't think it was anticipated. Maybe Dave can say he was on the charter review commission, but you see what I'm saying? That it's a delegated authority. It's not an inherent authority. He has the power to sign. He has only the power to sign the contracts that have been approved by the council. If the council, whether he could say, no, only the mayor could sign, I don't know, that's an interesting question. I would think it would be cleaner if it said that either the mayor or the city administrator would have the authority to sign contracts approved by the council. That would be cleaner. But I don't know if you're taking away.
Would it be fair to say that it's not a power but a responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, nor in my mind, supposing the common council passed a approved contract for signing. He said, no, I'm not gonna sign it. I don't know that, I think that the council could make him sign it because he would be signing it at the direction and as a representative of the common council as a whole.
It says the mayor shall
Right.
sign on behalf of the city all contracts made by it and cause the seal of the city to be affixed thereto.
Right.
I think,
So
Sign all deeds,
Is
local
that a
laws,
power or is that an obligation?
power. It's under general powers.
I thought we took that out.
I understand that, but if I
We
say.
did, but that's what I'm
if-
saying, we took
If I
it
say
out,
you,
but I don't
you
know.
have to do it if I tell you to,
Right,
is it, and then you can't refuse to do it.
right.
You see what I'm saying? Like I said, I don't think, I think it would be better if it is, but I don't know if you're taking away the power. Does the mayor still have the power to sign contracts?
No, because we did that, we did the,
Did you say that the mayor can't?
yeah, we signed it all over to
No.
the city administrator.
It says had the authority to sign on behalf of the city all contracts made by it unless such authority has been otherwise delegated to the city administrator by this charter or the city code. That's, I believe, the new language.
Yeah, that's what we
made.
updated it to.
Yeah.
But I don't think we had, my question is, I don't think we had, because we took a power away from an elected official, gave it directly to the city administrator.
Well, that's the question, whether it's power or responsibility.
Right.
I mean, for me, it sounds more like a responsibility, not a power, because
To me, it sounds like
the
a
power,
It's
the power was amongst this group in voting for whatever we're giving to the
I
mayor.
hear your concern, and I think the language would be better set, but the mayor has the power to appoint. Common council doesn't have the power to appoint committees, for example. And you can't say you got to appoint him, but the signing, he does it on behalf of the common council. He's the person who has the responsibility to do what the common council tells him to do. So I don't know what that, like I said, I think, if you want me to do something and give you a more formal opinion, I can do, but, it's kind of hard to do it off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay, I just,
Okay, with that being said,
That's my opinion, you got my opinion.
with that being said, are there any motions that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, then can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Dave, second by Emily.
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Richards?
Yes.
Councilmember LaPartie?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
yes.
Councilmember Overby?
Yes.
Councilmember Clapper?
Okay, so we have a lot to discuss in the additional business discussion section, and I'm presuming that the budget is gonna be a large item, so I almost wanna do, if I can, additional business, if anyone has anything else that they would like to discuss before we move on to the budget? No? Okay, I have one thing. So 31 Walnut Street, I just wanted to bring that up, to discuss it with the group. I found out on Monday prior to the planning commission that, from an 8th Ward constituent, that the planning commission was gonna be looking at site plan review for this, property, the consideration. It sounds like there are just some lingering questions about it, and so I just thought if we could discuss it as a group. Right now, we're not voting on it, so I'm not asking us to make any sort of determination, but just so that we can all kind of be on the same page about it, understanding where we do fall in the process, and, going from there.
It's my understanding that the council really doesn't have much to do with it, correct? Because it's going to the planning commission, that's not one of our powers, is it?
Well, the planning commission can grant a special use permit, but I think that there's just sort of cobbled together information at this point because I found out about it on Monday, the planning commission, had their meeting on it on Wednesday. I know that there were some concerns about the noticing process. And I think just understanding for all of us what approvals the project would need in order to go forward and what this means. This is kind of a big deal, and I would like to discuss it as a council. Dave?
As far as the notice goes, it's usually 200 feet from any project. Anybody that lives within that vicinity gets a notification. This time, I believe it was increased to 300 feet just because of what the project was. What I would definitely agree on though, and I think we need to, and this has happened in the past also, where notifications don't go out to the council members, but I think we need to start having projects that are significant, that we know are gonna have more of an outpouring of opinion. I think those notifications need to go to whoever the council member is, that is within their ward, so they can.
You're gonna have to define what the significant project that's going to cause a lot of outflow. You can't just say,
Well,
you either do it all, you do it for every application.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's not, you're not talking to me, you say, you folks have got to decide what notification is gonna be done, if you want to be notified of every single
But I think that's just a policy.
building permit application that's done within your ward.
Yeah, so I think, can we discuss what's a reasonable notification for?
Before you do that, here's my only, I kind of agree with that, but my only hang up is the planning board and the zoning board are supposed to be acting independent of the council. And I just don't know if that money's the water, if we're getting involved, that then all of a sudden we could be trying to put our thumb on things.
Well, you can have any council member go to that meeting and voice their opinion,
Right.
just like any other person out in pews. The people that are making the decision, though, you're right, Scott,
Might I suggest, rather than try to form legislation tonight, you refer this issue to the legislative committee and let them, and if you have suggestions, bring it to the legislative committee as to what you would want, and if you decide whether it's gonna be building permits, zoning applications, special use permits, electrical permits, plumbing permits, you're gonna have to decide. But talking about it now, I don't think it's gonna be, no matter what you do, it's gonna have to be drafted and sent to the legislative committee. So my suggestion, do that and make whatever recommendations you want to the legislative committee.
Okay,
Make informed consent.
okay, thank you.
I can just add one thing. So one simple thing that we've already done, I've talked to Carrie about, the city clerk's office, when they send out agendas for boards and commissions, it's just a copy of the common council on every agenda. So you may not be interested in the planning commission, and you may ignore it, but you have it there sent to your email box when it goes out to the public, so that you can take a look and see what's on the agenda. That way, at least you're informed when it goes out to the general public. So
And that may in fact fix the concern rather than legislate something.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, sort of, let's do the time.
But again, do whatever you want. If anybody wants to sponsor legislation, go ahead.
I was walking with you, David, until you said that, so.
Like I said, I don't generate legislation, I draft legislation as directed by the common council or the legislative committee sent Scott and can do it.
Because the notification to the council is usually a couple of days before the actual meeting.
So if I could, before you, I have an idea to piggyback off of the conversation that Greg and I had yesterday. We do, and you receive them for your council meetings, your committee meetings, and any boards and commissions that you actively liaise to. What I'd like to do is include you on every single meeting notification. Because if you look in that meeting notification, as the agendas become available to us, they're added right to that event. So you'll be able to, as we get the information and we provide it and we have it ready to go, you won't have to wait for that Friday distribution. As we get it, it's uploaded and it'll be available to you immediately. And then if you don't want to see the event, you can just decline it and it will disappear from your calendar.
Cool, yeah, sounds good.
I like that.
It's hard
Yeah.
to beat. Yeah, so that's one way of looking at it, and we can flesh it out, I guess, in legislative, but I also think that this is an opportunity to look at that work portal that I keep mentioning, is that we all want information disseminated amongst the council members, and I think by having a work portal, you'll be able to go in there and take a look at this type of event. You'll see it, because I think there was a date, wasn't it, back in August that this originally came up?
August 11th, there's a David letter in the planning commission materials.
But we did not receive the application until later. Our office does not get the application until it's deemed complete by code enforcement.
Yeah,
So it may have come up in August, and I've heard that date as well. But until we get notified of it, we have no materials and no information to place out there.
yeah, the application was dated October 31st, so it wasn't much more time, but it was certainly more than 2 days, so I think it would be helpful.
And Tyler, if we're able to go that route, Tyler has the meeting management software that will be able to have that one-stop shop to be able to identify all the information.
Right, my understanding, just from a brief conversation with Stephen, is when the application is deemed complete, it's added to an agenda and distributed. So this August date, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that might not be when there was complete application on the first kind of communication with the code office. I don't think it'd be reasonable for every communication about a potential project to be immediately disseminated to the public or the council, because that happens every day, all the time. I think there's gotta be sort of a easily defined, or as easily as we can define the point at which those things are communicated, I think, with the agenda makes sense.
I just wanna say, yeah, I'm on board with you 100% about knowing what goes on board. My only thing is I want the process to work as the process and not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get that, like, when they submit an application, I don't know as though, you know, codes needs to be able to be free, that they're doing their job and then they're going through the process of getting it up. That was my only concern about getting involved in too quick.
Yeah, well, if I could respond, I don't think that finding out about something that I probably wouldn't have found out about at all 2 days before the meeting allows me enough time to talk with the residents to make sure that they're informed, to gather their opinion, to keep people who will be really deeply impacted by this, you know, up to date on what's going on. So I understand what you're saying. I think that potential is there with everything. But I think that more notification is definitely necessary, not to lean on the planning commission, but to be able to be aware and discuss with the people who are gonna be affected. Yeah. Okay, thanks for entertaining that, everyone. I appreciate you. Okay, let's move on to the budget, something nice and light.
Did you wanna do the?
Oh, gosh, yeah, I'm sorry. We have the 30-day, let's do that too, sorry. The 30-day advance notice for Boba Yaga, which is at 156 Main Street. This is 30-day application, or an application to the SLA, just to reiterate, we get these all the time. We can either take 30 days and provide comments, right? Or we can waive our 30 days by a single majority vote at this meeting, so.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Do we need a motion for waiver?
Just need to know everybody's in favor.
Is everybody in favor
Yes.
of waiving? Okay. Okay.
And then the shopping carts and the,
So in your
Sort of.
packet, you have a couple sections about the legislation. So the first one is chapter 300, section 58 of the zoning code, which would deal with walls and fences that's being relayed for your reconsideration. We also have an ordinance to create chapter 238 of the municipal code for shopping carts. And then we also are being laid with a local law, proposed local law for the amendment of the schedule of rates for sewer.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
so this is just for.
Just lane, yeah.
Okay. Now, I think that's everything. We can move on to the, yes, Luke?
No, this is just quick. I just wanna thank, council. I know we're all busy and have stuff going on. I know I've been at times absent, unable to make it. Just encourage everyone that's a member of this council, all 9 of us, to communicate that better. I think would be great in the future.
Thank you, Luke. Okay, 2024 tentative budget. So I will need some guidance on this section of the discussion. I know that we had talked briefly during our meeting at 5:30 about the process, but where do we go from here?
So theoretically, if all looks good with the tentative budget and we have no discussion, or after some discussion, if all still looks good as the tentative budget was laid, we would read a motion to approve the tentative budget and set a public hearing to be scheduled for November 28th, 2023 at 7 p.m. If there are changes that you'd like to make to the budget, they have to be specified what those are. So to do that, you need a motion, you can do probably one motion that lists several changes, or you could do separate motions for each change, depending on how you want to go about things. And then you would have eventually a motion to approve the amended tentative budget.
Okay.
Obviously, we've talked about what's included in the tentative budget is raising the tax cap, not exceeding it. If you were to decide you want to amend the 2024 tentative budget to exceed the tax cap, then there would be another motion that's necessary to approve the local law that was previously laid to exceed the tax cap.
Okay.
Pretty much covers it, I believe, Jeannie.
So how do we get to discussion where we can ask questions and we can just start talking? Okay, I wanted to make sure we didn't need to like have a motion and then, okay, great, yes,
I
Scott.
just wanted to ask you a question. I mean, I guess, because the budget that's laid in front of us, I guess the first thing I would suggest would be to see if there is any consent, the consensus of going to the 10%.
Okay.
Because that would give us the place to start of, if that's not on the table discussion, then we have to try to figure out where people are comfortable.
I think that's reasonable, yeah. So that could just be kind of a straw vote, do you wanna entertain, right? Because we're not approving anything, so we wanna entertain the discussion about going to 10%, exceeding the tax cap.
I think that's probably one of the biggest parts of the budget, one of the biggest things to discuss.
To discuss, yeah. So we could discuss it now.
I can lead it off with that, I guess. You know, as much as I understand that the city needs money for its operational funds, I just in talking with constituents and kind of realizing our community here and, you know, realizing that we're not a rich community and that there are people on fixed incomes. And I've had people ask me, please, please, please do not raise my taxes 10%. I can't support it, you know? And I just really, I don't know if there's some kind of compromise that maybe we raise it a little above the tax cap, but going all the way to 10%, I just think it's just, I just don't see it solving anything. You know, if landlords have to raise their rents, you know, people are on fixed incomes, you know, it just, and I don't know, and then people aren't gonna be able to pay, and I don't know, I'm having a really hard time with that. So.
So I've been struggling with this. To be candid with you folks, it's been a very, very difficult time at school financially. I'm at essentially a fixed income. It's very expensive to live in the city of Oneonta. That said, with the understanding that my rent will likely go up, and I'll have to make some adjustments to my own personal life. You know, looking at the numbers, within 5 years, we're gonna see if we don't do this, 300,000 now, potentially up to that 10% cap, we'll see $1 million unless we seriously cut services, which is something that I'm not in favor of. And I know this is a difficult conversation, and I appreciate you folks entertaining it. But I am in favor of going up to that cap with the understanding how difficult it is for people. I'm in that situation myself.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, up to the cap or up to 10%?
Up to 10%, I'm sorry, yes. With the understanding that it's expensive right now. It's expensive, it's tough for me as someone who's renting. I'm in school, there's not a lot of money coming in. And with that being said, and I don't mean to, you know, just giving my personal perspective on things. I'm in favor of it because we do have to really start looking at ways to generate revenue, absolutely, that's part of it. But doing what we have in our power now to help get our budget under control.
Others? Mark?
With the supermajority needed to be able to pierce the tax cap, it's pretty clear that we don't have a supermajority. I think Emily suggested is there a compromise position that, or number that would be acceptable. And I guess to try to just facilitate the conversation, is that something that would be agreeable? Piercing the tax cap but stopping short of the 10%.
kind of tag onto that a little bit, I think we also have to make the thing about the water sewer as well, because if you're talking about doing any financial above the tax cap, I don't think water and sewer is possible this year.
That's interesting.
So I think that's that's gotta be a you know, you talk about compromise, I think that's.
Or that could just be an answer if we're not going above the tax cap for one individual or multiple council members. I think if we're not careful, we could end up having, we could end up going down rabbit holes of decision-making here. But I think if we narrow it down, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I understand exactly what you're talking about, but in that case, that could be like a no, because like you'll have your reason for not going above the tax cap, and it's because of the water sewer bill increase.
Okay.
I guess.
Am I making sense?
You are, but I think maybe I didn't make it, like, the reason why I was saying, like, maybe it'd be more favorable to go above the tax cap if we didn't do water and sewer. If we left them, said this year we're not doing it, couldn't do it, we're gonna concentrate on this part for the budget, and then that can be revisited next year. That's
For me, Scott, I feel like the water and sewer thing that we've been doing for years now, I think is one of the most important things that we're doing, so we can cover those infrastructure costs. So for me, I'm coming from continuing on what we're doing with water and sewer, and then we can make a decision on tax cap or not going above the tax cap. I don't know where we want to start this discussion, but we gotta find some point that where we start it and then grow the answers from there.
Right, well, I think, Mark did a nice job of kind of cutting to the heart of, we probably don't have a supermajority to go to 10%, right? So we don't need to hear from everyone on the council why they're not gonna go to 10%. But I think that Scott presented us with an alternative, which is if we're understanding people's personal, purse strings, right? And we need to go higher in I know Mark, you're looking for maybe a specific percentage we're hoping to go up to. But I think Scott is suggesting an alternative for us to consider, which is lowering the increase on the water and sewer. And Dave, to summarize, it sounds like you agree that the water and sewer need to be at the 10% that's been presented. I would tend to agree with you. So now we may be at a place where, Scott, what does that mean for you for general fund? I think what Scott's suggesting is balancing with the increases instead of doing all the increases, trying to balance those out. I think it's valuable for us to have this discussion because, we are talking about what it costs to live in the city and what we're willing to do with what we have. So I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, and I will do my best to keep us out of that, but I think that, basically everything is on the table at this point.
Maybe the discussion then should go to water and sewer to see how strongly do people feel about maintaining the trajectory that we're on now,
Okay,
or if they want to change it.
I think that's good. Can I get some thoughts on the water and sewer funds? Luke?
I think Dave said it best, and I think Jenny's provided us a very sound strategy of this steady increase.
Okay.
I'm in favor of keeping it at 10%.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so that's 3 of us then.
I agree with what Luke just said.
Okay. 4,
I guess,
do we have a
well,
fifth?
I don't, so.
Okay,
I'd like to ask a clarifying question, Jenny, if I could. There was a lot of information you put out earlier, but in part of that, did I understand that you were looking at 10% increase this year, and that then might get us to a point where we could look next year at slowing that particular pace to a more slow and steady pace? Is that what you're thinking? Would that be down around the kind of 2 to 3, or what is your
No,
thought?
it probably wouldn't be down around 2 or 3, but it might be between 5 and 8 instead of the 10. But I would have to look at the usage with the increased residents now with the Dean Street Law Office Department, and then also with Springbrook, with the residents there, and, just with the different, town properties.
Coming along.
For the stewards and things like that, I would look at the usage and just reapply it and see. Am I allowed to voice an opinion here?
I'd like to hear from council first. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question though, follow-up? I thought eventually, long-term, those water rates were gonna be going up
To
under 5%.
Yes,
Okay.
right now, the plan is, it was a number of years at 10, that it was gonna go 9, 8, 7, 5, 2, and then 1.
Yeah,
And
okay,
then it would
that's what I
just-
thought.
Yeah, it would just stay at 1%, basically, for many years.
Yeah.
So, and we're just trying to get the rates up to where it's supporting operations. And as of the information I presented you, you'll see that it's starting to take the effect.
Okay. So, okay. Water and sewer.
We need to keep investing in our infrastructure. Our water and sewer pipes are 110 plus years old. I think we need to keep investing in it. I hear what Scott's saying. I do. It's loud and clear when we talk to our constituents. The infrastructure will hurt us more if we don't keep creating a restricted fund or unrestricted fund balance for our water and sewer. I'll pause there because I have some serious concerns about the general fund.
General fund. Okay, so it seems like there's consensus for water and sewer staying at 10%. So let's talk about what to do with the general fund. As it stands, we're being presented with taking out $1.8 million from the general fund. The general fund balance in order to balance the budget. I doubt we're gonna pare back $1.8 million from the budget, going line by line, but I did have a couple of things. I'm not gonna go first though, I wanna hear from everybody else.
Is that 1.8 at the 10%?
No, that's 2.9.
That's just 1.8, no matter what, we're taking.
If you went to the 10%, it would be about just over 1.5.
So $300,000.
Right.
But Katie, I think it's more than 1.8, it's over $4 million is what we're being asked.
With the restricted, use of
We're being-
restricted reserves.
Right, we're being asked, unrestricted, is your 2024 budget, your highway equipment, your parking, your public safety, your IT, central garage, fire truck, and Madison Field. The fire truck doesn't have a number attached to it. So that's your unrestricted that we're being asked to pass $4.094 million.
That's not in the budget, right?
No.
Clarify, can you put
Yeah.
on this sheet, if that's what you're looking at, fund balance information, 2024 budget discussion, that 1.834 million is what's in the 2024 budget, unrestricted fund balance being used to balance that budget. The rest of it, the highway equipment, parking, et cetera, that Madison Field makes up that 4.094 is the surplus that we, 22-23, that we're looking to take from unrestricted and put it into restricted.
Right, you're trying to take unrestricted fund balances and put it towards this debt or operational cost this year.
No, highway equipment, parking, public safety, IT, central garage.
Our funds.
Transfer our reserve, well, not central garage, but those are reserves we'll be replenishing. That ultimately, eventually, theoretically will be used on expenses, but they're not, those aren't going to be expended.
So we are talking about using reserve funds for purchases in the 2024 budget, and that's where it gets confusing, that's what I was asking before too, is on page 20, we have the use of fund balance and reserves. So these are things that are in the budget that we'd be going on. The 1.8 at the top is the use of general fund balance to balance the budget. And then below that, the three kind of gray boxes there is general fund reserves, water fund reserves, and sewer fund reserves. And so those are budgeted, or purchases that are in the budget that we would be pulling from reserves. And the suggestion on the sheet is to use the unrestricted to replenish those reserves after the purchases. Page 20. Page 20. In the tentative budget. Okay.
On page 20,
Here, it's,
No, it's the same, isn't it? I just highlighted some stuff.
Oh, okay. I was looking for the red. Right, so you're building up your reserves, but you're taking money out of the general fund. You're
Right.
building up individual reserves by taking money out of the unrestricted general fund.
The 1.8 is to balance the budget with unassigned fund balance. The 4 million, which is, or less than 1.8, so, you know, the 2.8, we're just reclassifying it from unassigned to restricted purposes that we will use in the future. So we're just reclassifying the fund balance. We're not decreasing the fund balance. We're just taking it out of unassigned and moving it over to the restricted.
Okay.
For the purposes that we notated.
And that's not in the budget, right? That would be
No,
a separate
and
motion.
that's not a budget issue, it is just a reclassification issue.
Okay.
Right, so we're asking for the use of $1.8 million out of our unrestricted fund balance to pay for our operational costs. That's up from 1.1, 1.2, I've been talking about for the last couple of years. And with your data sheet, thank you very much, those spreadsheets are great. We're literally gonna just keep going up. We'll just keep going up until we hit over 3 million.
Unless we're able to institute higher revenue sources through sales tax, economic development, change of services, maybe we have the same type of services, but we find different ways to offer them and a different financing structure. Maybe we have more shared service contracts. As you know, we're looking at different shared services or different, more transport contracts for the ambulance. There's a lot of things in the works, but they're just not finalized yet.
Scott?
No matter what, we got a bunch of hard choices sitting here in front of us on paper. Maybe one of the hard choices we have to think about right now is our vacancy positions, and maybe we should just unfund them for a while. Use some of that savings for things.
I don't know my staffing report.
We have,
We had 11 positions that didn't get filled in '23, and we saved $755,000, something like that, between salary and benefits.
maybe that is one way to go, and that'll bring us down to just a little over $1 million.
I mean, it's better, in my opinion, than in 3 years having to lay a bunch of people off because we don't have any money.
Right, that's my biggest fear, is that in 2.5 years, we're out of funds, and you're making mass cuts. I just feel like we're kicking the can.
Agreed. So do we have a commitment then to try to reduce the use of unrestricted fund balance from the council? Is that the direction we want to go? I mean, we can do some of that here. We can give the budget back and say, we need to reduce this somehow. What would we do? I think that's an option, right? Jenny's like, no, please don't give it back to me. I'm done.
We have to have a public meeting, a public hearing next Tuesday.
Okay.
So we would have to have another meeting before the public hearing on Tuesday to finalize what you want to present to the public.
And what is the notice requirement on the public hearing?
We scheduled a public hearing
Oh, so
because it's a
okay.
required event.
Okay, cool. So we could do it Tuesday right before the public hearing, theoretically. I'm not suggesting that, I'm just saying.
Just keep in mind that any motion to alter the tentative budget needs to then result in an altered tentative budget. So there
Right.
needs to be some
Okay.
period of time
Yeah.
between when those decisions are made by council and when there's a tentative budget that's
Gotcha.
amended that can be presentable to the public for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Ultimately, we have to have it approved by December 15th, correct?
December 6th, I think, is the first meeting in, yeah, it's
I thought for
the,
state purposes, it was like December 15th.
no, it's the first council in December, and then I've got to get it to the county so they can get it into the tax bills.
It's also what's in the charter.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I would say, I think the first thing we need to do is probably unfund the vacancy positions for.
Is there general support for that?
I would support it.
It's 2.
Yeah, I support 3.
I want to see what positions we're talking about exactly.
I guess
I don't have to make a blanket decision.
I guess
Carrie's gonna put up the city staffing overview, so we can take a look at what positions we would wanna defund.
because perhaps there have been some positions that have been, some vacancies that we've been unable to fill for like a few years now, for like a long time. Maybe because there also might be vacancies that might have just come up on the table. So,
Right, and we wouldn't
and we
want.
wouldn't wanna maybe necessarily cut that right away, so maybe we can kind of,
Okay.
look through them.
I'm just
Yeah.
looking for the first vacant.
Well, that first screen you had, it said 11 and then 12 part-time.
Yeah, I was looking for an identification for the position.
Yeah,
Actually, I already heard that.
you guys are good, I left that at home, like, I'm not gonna do that. Code enforcement has vacancy.
So first one would be,
There's like 10 part-timers in the transportation.
10
We had 1 part-timer in the codes, but we just had a full-time code enforcement officer who retired.
We have 2, want me to read through them, because you know, finance, deputy finance director,
Right. And the admin salaries as well.
ordinance inspector, code enforcement inspector, technically is not vacant right now, but will be vacant due to Joe's retirement in about a month, his actual last day is. Do you just want to hear about full-time positions or also part-time positions?
I think both.
A part-time laborer, in code enforcement,
Is that seasonal?
no.
Okay.
We have 10 part-time bus drivers. We have 4 full-time police officers, a part-time civilian dispatcher in the police department. We have 1 full-time firefighter. We have a full-time engineering technician, a seasonal engineering aide, 2 seasonal laborers and 2 seasonal student workers in parks, buildings, and grounds crew in public works, 1 full-time maintenance worker on that same crew. A working supervisor, no, that's been filled tonight, sorry. Heavy equipment operator on the water and sewer crew, full-time, and a seasonal laborer. 2 seasonal student workers in the water treatment plant. Seasonal student worker in the wastewater treatment plant. Obviously, with any not filling of vacancies comes the associated reduction in services, which would have to be decided on the council, what that is, how we're swinging it. I think not filling whatever vacancies we happen to currently have is, I don't know if the word is arbitrary way to go about it, but it might not be I think if you're looking at cutting positions, there might need to be a more in-depth discussion about what the services are that the city provides and what services we're willing to accept reductions in. And then talking about if there are personnel reductions that can effectuate those reductions in services. Rather than just, like I said, going with whatever vacancies we have in the hat currently.
Right.
I would not do your fire your police right away. I would do look at the other ones first. I'm not saying cut, I'm just saying, we have to start making some hard decisions of what we're gonna fund, what we're not gonna fund. And
So you're saying hiring freeze?
like a
Yeah.
hiring freeze, let's just,
What that would
and then
do,
we could do maybe 3 months, 4 months. As things start going out, we can start doing this again.
Well, I think the other thing we could do then too is kind of what we already do now. Now positions come to the finance HR committee and they're budgeted vacant and we go, yeah, that's great. But if they were unbudgeted, we could discuss adding positions to the budget throughout the year as they come up.
But Jenny advised us earlier that she wants, if you're gonna have a position, it needs to be budgeted. That way everybody knows where we're at. So
Yeah, I
I get
suppose
that, but
that's
if you
true.
put a hiring freeze, then everybody knows that the same way.
Yeah. And without, like, we're basically just taking the top off if we just say, bring them to us, then we don't know going in, because it's not budgeted, so it makes sense.
We have signed contracts with all the unions.
Yeah, we're in contract with all of them. Renewed recently, 3 of the 4, but the 4th is still in the contract.
And that includes the salary increases that were discussed. Into effect.
Yes, as far as in the budget, yes.
Okay.
So 3 out of the 4 unions have been successfully signed. And then the administrative obviously is up for discussion.
Right. And the part-time wage schedule we just received, I think, as well.
The what?
The part-time wage schedule. Can I ask a couple more questions? Okay. In engineering, I noticed a big jump in personal services from 23 to 24. Did we add a position?
We added the engineer, we added the engineering technician.
That was added in 23.
That was added in 23, but I'm trying to think where it was in the budget. I'm not sure if we changed I think we might have changed departments for that. And because we moved it to the engineering department instead.
Where would it have been?
I think it was under grant administration, thinking that it was going to be funded through the grant projects.
I think you're right. Okay, yeah, because that was a hefty jump from 23 to 24. And that's currently vacant, right?
That is currently vacant.
Okay.
Right, and as Jenny
It's like
alluded to,
$50,000.
the reason we established that position was with the intent that it be funded by the administrative portion of the grants we received. So we have several large infrastructure grants that are projects that are coming along that need additional support. We cannot handle that in-house. That will result in, if we're unable to fill the position, it's ultimately going to result in having to contract more, all the services out. We can be more effective or more cost efficient if we're able to find a good person to fill that position, a qualified person to fill that position. If we're unable to, or the position goes away, and we still want to do those projects at the same level, it just won't be possible in-house.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
And just so you know, that revenue source to fund that position is not in the budget, only because we don't have the approved grants yet.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, that's something that will presumably reduce, so that's good. I noticed that, professional services, there's an increase pretty much across the board in all the departments. Could you talk about what that is? Is that Tyler Technology?
No, we reinstituted some services that had been taken out in the last 2 previous budgets for I want to say engineering services for different projects and doing the street maintenance in-house instead of using the CHIPS monies for it and different things like that. We had tried using it, doing it in a different way that was not successful as far as the state was concerned.
Okay.
So we put it back into the budget. And then some of the professional services went up only for like one-time projects. But it was a little bit here and there in different departments, which just accumulated.
Okay. Okay, and the 2024 tentative budget in the personnel department, should that be relabeled human resources? That's an aside.
Well, we had that discussion. The state has not officially changed in their chart of accounts personnel to human resources.
Okay.
So we left it under personnel, but are using in-house titles for human resources.
Okay, gotcha. And then I noticed that the 2024 health and dental is very low compared to 21-22.
That's because both people right now that are eligible in the HR department take buyouts instead of having coverage.
Great, okay. Let's see. Does anyone else have any questions, or you just wanna, obviously I have a lot, as I do. But I would like to understand where some of these things come from before I vote on them.
Okay.
Thanks. Let's see. Well, that's an executive session question. Oh, and I just noticed one thing that on page 20 with the reserves, Parks and Rec, it says the Parks and Rec reserve. I have a question about that, but I'll ask it in finance. It's not relevant really to the budget. It says total streets and sidewalks reserve at the bottom there. And then it says Parks and Rec at the, underneath highway equipment.
That's a typo.
Okay, that's what I thought. No, that's okay. I just figured I would call that out.
Oh, thank you. That's a typo.
Sure.
Oh, it looks like it was switched.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Scott, go ahead.
I'm just gonna make the suggestion, we stay at the tax cap and
Yeah, we,
take the 1.8 out of the
yeah.
reserves.
Is that the general feeling of the room?
When Dylan's not here, I probably shouldn't read it for you.
Oh, can I say something in support of what Scott just said?
Of course.
I think it's good to look at the big picture, and part of the big picture is referencing what the city treasurer said earlier about a memo that she sent out a couple weeks ago. We're talking about the balance of properties that are exempt and non-exempt and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of being able to attract development and people to the city, which will in turn cause sales tax and other receipts to go up. So maybe we need to be looking more at the big picture of, okay, we're looking at the problems that were created when earlier common councils not only didn't go over the cap, but stayed under the cap. And the compounding the percentages from that, the negative percentages are hurt us now. If we look at it another way, if we can attract more people and more development here by not having higher taxes, then that generates other forms, other forms of income. The engine of any economy is the people, is laborers and producers. We need more people here. Will we get more people here if we raise our taxes beyond the tax cap? I'm just saying, maybe we should look at the big picture of, is there a way that we can look down the road optimistically at the idea that we can make Oneonta a more attractive place, bring more people in here, get more, and overcome the deficits that way rather than burdening our existing population with owners' taxes.
I agree. I think what concerns me about that is that we don't really, in my understanding, have a strategy for those things in place. So we're just hoping that that will happen. And I agree, like, I won't vote to go over the tax cap, this time. I don't think that people can afford it, just flat out. But I think that without discussing, like, what we plan to do for the future, because we talk about it every year. We say we need new revenue, we need new people, we need, you know, and we make efforts during the year for sure. But without a strategy, it just feels like blind hope to me, and I'm concerned, you know, seeing the water run out, you know, on the chart in 7 years or something is really scary. So that's just where I'm coming from with it. But I don't disagree. Scott?
The other thing to go along with it is just because we say we did pass this, doesn't mean that we can't modify it as we go through the year too. I mean, we have to work on it. I mean, we can still be working on it in December, we can be working on it in January. Nothing says we have to go out and make big purchases right off the bat. We can kind of push, you know, we might have to be real diligent on how we do things from the first of the year and, you know.
Well, you raise a good point, which is if we agree to a tax levy, that's what we're being asked to do, right? And push the budget, that needs to be in. But then, in terms of, after that, what we're trying to do is reduce our spending down of our unrestricted fund balance.
Yeah.
And can we continue to work on that as a council as time goes on?
What Craig kept saying was, that we've heard before is what services do we wanna have, what services, that's next, you know, the next council coming in, we might have to make those hard decisions.
Yes, Mark?
It's clear there's no supermajority to be able to pierce the cap one way or another, period. So 2.9 will have to be what we vote upon as that. I'd like to suggest that there's a retreat coming up, that the retreat be focused on economic development, and committed to that.
It's a great idea.
I mean, that's the space in which to do it. And then we double down on how we do it. We begin to your point, create a plan. Now, naive to think that we're gonna have a complete plan kind of sketched out in that particular time. But that's the space where we begin to think about these things long-term. And there hasn't been a long-term focus. And that long-term focus needs to include businesses, you know, our institutions of higher education, the hospital, and some long-term thinking and planning about that. And we're gonna need to have leadership on this, and it's gonna need to come from this particular council to lead in that particular direction. And so, I guess I'd like to say, let's vote on the 2.9, since it's clear we do not have the supermajority to be able to pierce that cap.
Okay.
And let's then think of how we're gonna be able to build the economic kind of engine that we so desperately need, and I think Ed put that well. And double down on doing that. We talk about it, we all had grand plans 4 years ago when we were voted in here the first time, many of us. So it's not. And so, you know, get back to that and begin to think about what we can do and drive these conversations. That should be the heart of everything that we do, beyond all the kind of business of the city.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was well said.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't often say things well.
Okay, so can we read a motion to accept the tentative budget as presented? Okay.
It wouldn't be as presented, because it's presented as 10%, isn't it? Or is it?
No.
It's presented. Oh, okay. My bad, sorry. It's a long night.
Thank you, Mark.
Who wants to make the motion?
I'd like to see this motion before I
Yeah.
vote on it. I just, after that, I'm going to can we just print that thing?
You're killing me. Can we project it onto the screen?
Or project it on the screen?
Because that's.
Let's save some costs right there, right?
Save a tree.
I'll email.
I turned last year's binder back over, Mark.
What's that?
I turned the 23 binder back over. It's right there.
Oh, I will gather them.
I figured you'd want it back.
No, I have to get
I'll
mine
go
out
and
of this
empty mine
bigger
out and bring it
binder.
back.
I'll bring mine.
You're welcome to keep, no, you're welcome to keep them because you may want to refer to them during the year. That's why I've never asked to recollect them.
Yeah.
Um,
Good stuff in there.
Yeah, and trust me, doing all the electronic scanning that we're doing, we're getting lots of binders back. Because we're eliminating all this paper storage. But no, you're more than welcome to keep them.
How do I will this to my successor?
Just put it right in your desk.
And then forget about it for 2 months.
Sounds like a commercial.
Yes.
Alright, it won't let me zoom in, I am so incredibly sorry. But it says, motion that the common council approves the 2024 tentative budget as presented for a public hearing to be scheduled for November 28, 2023 at 7:00 p.m.
Okay.
That's the motion, right?
Yeah. Scott,
Seconded.
followed by Mark? Are you seconding?
Well, I
We'll have
thought
discussion
you made
after.
the motion.
I can't move.
No, I need a motion.
I heard I couldn't move.
I don't know, you could move. Why can't you?
She cannot move because she's the acting,
Ah.
the acting mayor, the mayor cannot make a motion on it for approval by him,
I
so
thought so.
you were right.
Okay. Yes. Point. All right.
He does pay attention.
Made by Scott, second by
I listen to
Marty.
every word that comes out of your mouth, Scott.
It's
I have
amazing.
to always be prepared.
It's amazing. Okay, do we have any further discussion?
Who was our second? Sorry.
Marty.
Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion from anyone in the room?
Ginny?
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You had something you wanted to say before we vote.
We had talked about the HR position. You wanted me to give you different options of adding it back into the budget. So I gave you 3 options, one for the whole year, one for a half year, and then one for part-time.
Oh,
I did not know if you wanted to incorporate that into your discussion.
I have no interest in putting a position back in with what we're doing right now. I think that's gonna undercut us in what we're trying to get done right now. I think if we wanna put that position, we can revisit that at the first of the year.
Consensus on that?
I agree.
Or not? Well, we have a motion on the floor, so we wouldn't do that at this point anyway. But, okay, any further discussion? Please take the roll on the 2024 tentative budget as presented.
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaPartie?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Overby?
Aye.
Councilmember Falcon?
Aye. Yes, though.
Can I just update the council?
Sure.
Okay, now that you have voted, what I will do tomorrow is I will file with the state that we are not going to go over the tax cap. It's a filing that I have to do. And we don't need to take any action on the local law, correct?
Correct. Okay, great,
Thanks for all
thanks
your hard
everyone.
work on this, Jen.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
so
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work on this.
great stuff.
Yeah.
all
How it
Yeah, I
spreads
know.
out, it ties in.
Oh my gosh.
And we're on
Unbelievable.
Okay, so we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations. Emily, thank you.
So,
Mark Davies, second.
All in favor?
Contract
Yes.
negotiations are,
Do I have to be specific?
I'm sorry,
Do I have to be specific, or can I just say contract negotiations?
but you should be able to speak on what contract negotiations you're talking about.
Okay, I'd like to first discuss contract negotiations with the IAFF, and then, after that, there's an update on the city administrator contract negotiations. Are we still good? Everybody's excited about that? Are we good?
To go into executive session?
I don't know if excited is the word, but sure.
Councilmember Davies? Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember LaPartie?
Yes.
Councilmember Carson?
yes.
Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Overby?
Yes.
Councilmember Falcon?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I just wanted to say